Former President Trump, speaking of which, gaining 2 points since the debate. He now leads President Biden by 8 in a new poll out this afternoon from the New York Times and Siena College. Meantime, over at CNN, take a listen to the senior data reporter, Harry N.
24% of Republicans thought that George H.W. Bush should get out of the race. Compare that now, 32% of Democrats think that Joe Biden should get out of the race. The numbers that Joe Biden is facing amongst his base look a lot more like 1992 when George H.W. Bush not only stayed in the race, but he ran hard, obviously lost that November to Bill Clinton.
So let's bring in Karl Rove, former Deputy White House Chief of Staff for President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Karl, I don't think there's many similarities to what we're seeing right now. What is your assessment of where things are as we're getting new numbers, both public polling, and we're getting some word about internal polls from Democrats saying it's sliding?
Yeah, look, this was a bad situation before the debate. And it's only gotten worse. Think about this. The Harvard Capps Harris poll in May, 54% said they doubted that he had the fitness to be president of the United States, mental and physical fitness. At the end of June, 66%. CBS YouGov, early June, 65% said he lacks the mental and cognitive health needed to be president. At the end of June, it's 72%. So this was bad before. Joe made that point earlier, I thought, quite well. This was a big problem going into the debate. It was made only worse. And the administration's response seems to be, who are you going to believe, us or your lying eyes? And the American people are going to continue to have these doubts, and they're only going to grow, and they're going to begin to affect the ballot, as we've already begun to see.
Yeah, it is tough to listen to Karine Jean-Pierre say again the same sentence, that he's much more energetic than they are. They look at him, they get tired. And then we hear about him talking to donors and saying he almost fell asleep on the debate stage because of jet lag. Speaking of which, here's Mika Brzezinski on MSNBC, and then Karine Jean-Pierre from the White House briefing today.
There's a lot of criticism now that he's saying it was jet lag. I brought this up earlier. It was flying across 12 time zones when your son was convicted on felony counts that wouldn't bring any others to court, but your son is convicted. So that emotional trauma happening while he's abroad. So, yes, Hunter's staying close with his dad right now.
How is it that the president was still tired 12 days after returning from Europe, had a cold, but then went to the Waffle House, and then the following day staged such a huge comeback that he gave those North Carolina remarks? Like, help us understand.
Have you had a cold before?
Of course I've had a cold before.
Okay, so you probably, well, come on, Jackie. Let's be very, let's be.
12 days after he returned, though,
but
and
you
he
also,
blamed jet lag yesterday.
Hold on a second. There's a cold, there's a jet lag. You combine that. He continues to work on for the American people, day in and day out, around the clock. Things happen.
There's 12 days after he returns home to the debate. He doesn't start debate prep until 11 a.m. and reportedly takes a nap in the afternoon. Karl, it's tough to listen to some of the explanations.
Oh, it's just terrible. I mean, he had 7 days at Camp David. Got up late, worked for a couple of hours, took a nice nap, had a lovely dinner. You've been at Camp David, relaxing place, and 7 days and before the debate, and we see what we saw. I mean, that was painful to watch. It was painful not only just to feel sorry for somebody who put themselves in that situation, but it was sorry for the country. We do not need the President of the United States to be sounding and looking like we saw that night. And even the next day, he goes and gives a speech on a teleprompter. He can't give a stump speech from either notes or memory. He has to read it off of a teleprompter, and at the end of it, with the cameras right there in front of him, he walks off, turns his back to the camera, and does not turn back. The normal candidate would be out there paying attention to the cameras, waving to the people, interacting with the audience, showing energy. And instead, we saw a slumped very old man, his arm being held by his wife with his back turned to the camera while the crowd tried to provide the energy that he couldn't provide to them. This is sad. And it just seems to me, were we supposed to feel good when we got the news that one of the key advisors at the family meeting this past weekend telling him you need to stay in there is Hunter Biden, who as an adult has shown very bad judgment on virtually everything. And what he wants to do is, Dad, you got to stay in there and fight and you'll be just fine. That's not what the numbers say, and that's not what's going to happen if he remains in the contest.
Yeah, last thing. If he remains in the contest, as they say he is, that's one thing. But if he does choose to pull his name from the nomination, how is it possible to do that and then still stay as president for 7 months, considering the fact that he would be pulling the nomination because of what America realized and saw on that Thursday debate?
Yeah. Well, he'd have to make the case to the American people of we've got big challenges as a country. I need to face those challenges as your president. I can't be a candidate and the president at the same time, so I'm stepping aside. Now, he's not the nominee of the Democratic Party until the Democrats in the middle of August gather together in the city of Chicago and nearly 4,000 delegates vote. And if they cannot agree on a candidate on the first ballot, then an additional 700 superdelegates begin to vote. And remember, of the nearly 4,000 delegates to the Democratic Convention, nearly 3,900 of them are his delegates. They're normal Democrats. This is not going to be a convention with 45% SDA members and Bernie bros.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing to see. Every day is another news cycle here. Karl Rove, we appreciate the time.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.